Please welcome White House Domestic Policy Advisor Ambassador Susan Rice, Chairman James McGovern, Senator Cory Booker, and Senator Mike Braun.
Well, good morning, everyone. And thank you so much for traveling all this way to be with us here today. As you all know, in conjunction with today's conference, and informed by many of you, we've released a national strategy outlining steps the government will be taking and catalyzing the public and private sectors to join in a whole-of-society approach. You can find that strategy at www.whitehouse.gov/Hunger Health Conference. I'm thrilled today that more than 100 organizations across the public and private sectors are making commitments to realize the goals of our national strategy. Cisco, for instance, will provide more than $500 million over the next 5 years to support healthy eating. Another example is that the Food Industry Association will mobilize its membership to donate 2 billion meals next year to food banks and anti-hunger organizations, and commit to reach a minimum of 100 million consumers for each of the next 7 years with evidence-based education on healthy foods. For this conversation, I am honored to be joined by 3 members of Congress who were instrumental in making this conference possible: Chairman McGovern, Senator Braun, and Senator Booker. And of course, we deeply miss Congresswoman Walorski, who was a leader in this work before we so tragically lost her in August. But let me begin by recognizing Chairman McGovern, because without his championing of these issues and this conference, we would not be here today. As you all know, for over 2 decades, Chairman McGovern has been a leading voice in Congress when it comes to addressing policy failures that have created food insecurity. He secured the funding for today's conference and has worked on a bipartisan basis to elevate this issue. We're so grateful, Mr. Chairman, for your compassion and your leadership. As I like to say, you are the OG in this world. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me ask you to open us up, please.
Well, thank you. I can't believe this is actually happening. I'm so happy to see everybody. And I want to thank Ambassador Rice and her terrific team for all the work that they have done in pulling this together. I'm grateful to the President and to the Vice President for agreeing to do this and their leadership. I'm honored to be joined in this effort by my friend Senator Booker and Senator Braun. And as Ambassador Rice said, we all miss Congresswoman Walorski, who is a dear friend and a great champion on all these issues. I'm grateful to all the organizations that have participated in this. I'm grateful to my colleagues in Congress. I would like to ask them to stand so they can be recognized. We have a lot of members here. I'm grateful to all the non-governmental organizations, all the faith-based leaders, those in the private sector who have joined us today. Most especially, I am grateful to those with lived experiences who have been so forthcoming in this process and who we're going to hear from today. Look, this is a big deal. The President of the United States just announced to the world that ending hunger and promoting better nutrition in this country is a national priority. And so, what happens today is important, but what happens tomorrow is even more important, and the follow-up, and we all have to keep our commitments and our word here. Let me just close with this. As some of you may or may not know, my first job on Capitol Hill was as an intern for Senator George McGovern of South Dakota. And he, along with Senator Dole, devoted their careers to ending hunger in this country and promoting better nutrition for everybody. I'm actually wearing Senator McGovern's tie that his grandson gave me after the senator passed away. Wow. But here's what I want everybody to keep in mind. So the group up here, it's a bipartisan group that asked for this conference. And George McGovern and Bob Dole worked in a bipartisan way to pass some of the most consequential legislation to end hunger and to promote better nutrition in the history of our country. They were different, polar opposites. He was a liberal, Dole was a conservative, but they figured out you don't have to agree on everything to agree on something. And the something they agreed on was that ending hunger needed to be a priority. And maybe it's because they came from states like South Dakota and Kansas that grew so much of our food and there was so much agricultural abundance. And I think they thought it was unacceptable that so many people in this country could not share in that abundance. And so, look, that's what's bringing us here today. Food ought to unite us, and ending hunger ought to unite us. And I look forward to working with all of you in the weeks and the months and the years to come, and my colleagues up here in a bipartisan way to actually make history, to transform this country from a country where right now close to 35 million Americans don't know where the next meal is going to come from, to a country where hunger is illegal, where it doesn't exist at all. So thank you.
Well, as we all know, Senator Braun, you have been a champion on these issues for so long and for so many years, and a great partner in pulling together this conference. We are grateful for your leadership, and I would love to hear from your perspective why this is so important and what you hope will come of this conference.
When you have the three words we have up there, hunger, health, and nutrition, there shouldn't be anything partisan about that. And I go back to Jackie Walorski, a congresswoman from northern Indiana. There's something about Indiana that we're practical, we're entrepreneurial, and when it comes to getting things done, we try to do it. I hearken back to probably 15 years ago in my own company. I was a Main Street entrepreneur that was blessed with a family. 3 of my 4 kids actually wanted to work in the business. They've been doing that now, 2 sons for years. But I'll never forget, 15 years ago, I'd hear every year how lucky it was. My insurance was only going up 5%. And I actually tackled that back then, health, sustainable well-being, and tried to get my own employees engaged in the effort to do that. When we did that and based it upon wellness, including nutrition, free biometric screenings, we haven't had premium increases in 15 years. So wow. What that means is if you do it, and you do it at that level especially, you can get things done. So when it comes to agriculture, Indiana is a big agriculture state. Next to manufacturing, it's probably the most important industry. So we have a lot of stakeholders there, and that productive capacity of the economy, that's where I've grown up and done it mostly with a small business. That early entrepreneurial activity was 15 employees for nearly 20 years. Now we have locations in almost all states, logistics, distribution. That's what we got to do with food if we're going to get it from here to there. And when 10% of our own population goes to bed hungry, that's not good. And the Agriculture Committee, by the way, is the least partisan in the U.S. Senate, I would say, so we got a lot of opportunity there. And then I'll harken back to when Chris Coons asked me as a freshman senator about 6 months into my first year back in 19, before a lot of other things started to take over and kind of eat up all the oxygen in the legislative room. I thought he was going to fall over when I said I'd be interested in starting a climate caucus. He said, will it be more than just two of us? I said, give me time. So good news is there, Mother Earth, climate. When I look at young conservatives, when they want to meet a keynote their convention, Republicans, it was about that issue. To me, that is as essential, and the ideas of how we get there are going to be based not only on what we do at the federal government, but in talking to all the stakeholders out there that have gone from, I didn't know how they were going to be interested in what degree, to where they've now made it a priority. It's going to depend a lot on the private sector, on technology, on things we don't even know about yet. That's going to be a more difficult navigation than I think this, when we are the breadbasket of the world. We do so much with the productive side of agriculture currently. We got a great place like Purdue University right in our home state, and we are doers. And I can tell you, in the little under 4 years I traveled the state, there's a lot to be optimistic about. We won't solve it here, but this is probably the biggest forum where we need to talk about it.
Thank you so much, Senator. Yeah. Really appreciate it. Senator Booker.
Yes.
You and I go way back. We go back to school together, actually, but dating you, not me, I guess, in that regard. But you have been long, from going back to your time as mayor, a huge champion on issues of nutrition and health, going back to your days as a college athlete. He was an awesome football player at the best university in the country. So. But Senator, seriously, please share with us your motivations, why you feel so passionately about these issues and why this has been something you have made a signature issue.
Well, first of all, I just want to, like my colleagues, just give a huge thank you. First of all, this gathering, this room is so amazing. The luminaries are here. I've lost count with how many people I want to get selfies with. But you know, from our Secretary of Agriculture, who is doing the work to combat hunger, from my state, the Speaker of the House is right here. Somebody that I love and admire for driving these issues in my home state. This is an incredible gathering, and it's historic because it's only the second time. We've given our love to the man who's driven this idea for so long. I want to say, Susan, to you real quick, because our president has the vision, but he delegates to people to get the job done. We would not be here if this wasn't executed by Susan Rice, and I hope you all give her a round of applause. And then my last thank you is to Senator Braun. I mean, this is sort of the Biden-McCain tradition. You're seeing an evidence of this person. It's not hard when you have a president of another party. I know this from my bills I passed under the previous president, but we are seeing such promise and possibility because we have people on both sides of the aisle that feel passionate about these issues. And so, Susan, when you ask me why I feel so passionate about this, it's not just because of the hunger issues in America. We have a physical storm tragically approaching America right now, but there is a storm that has been causing utter devastation beyond, I think, most Americans' full conception that we have not faced up to. It's like we're a frog in boiling water, and the water is boiling, the crisis is here. I want us to be a country that leads the planet in science and technology, has the best GDP. Heck, we have the biggest military, but we lead industrial nations in diet-related diseases. Half of our population right now is diabetic or pre-diabetic. And for black and brown communities, God, you all know this. Blacks are 77% more likely to get diabetes and twice as likely to die of it. And so you think about our economy, we all are concerned about these issues, but what kind of economy right now? Think about this. Almost 1 out of every 3 of our government dollars is not being spent on education or science and research. It's being spent on health care. And 80% of our healthcare problems in this country are preventable. 80%. Our economy now is being saddled. Almost 1 out of every $5 we spend as Americans is being spent to treat diseases and disorders that are entirely preventable because we have a food system that is doing the wrong thing. So this was a day when I heard the president say what he said, make the commitments that he's made. Because there are common sense. This is policy that we could change. It does not have to be this way. We could lead in what are our common values. We know, people of faith, God wants us to have life and have it more abundantly. Our founding documents, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, health is necessary. And so when you start talking about a common sense intervention like food is medicine, we're going to have a hearing on that in the Senate, where this simple idea is if you provide people with diet-related diseases abundant access to health and well-being, the private sector is showing this, you can bend the healthcare curves, lower costs for people, elevate human life. I want to see, and the president's made this commitment, we need to put the F back in the FDA. The FDA has done remarkable things, from tobacco to common sense drug regulations, but we need to focus back again on food. Doing common sense things like giving families access to healthy food, information, front of label packaging that tells us, hey, these ingredients literally are linked to diseases and destruction of your body, making sure that we put limits on how much sugar and sodium is put in these massively processed foods. So we have a choice as a country to continue to go down the hill to the point where half of our dollars in government, we're not that far from it, are being spent on healthcare, or will we show the world that we can't just lead in space, we can't just lead in science, we just can't lead in military, but America is going to be the best nation on the planet for raising healthy children.
Mr. Chairman, let me just wrap up with you and give you an opportunity to reflect on what you hope will be the legacy of this conference. When we look back 50 years from now, what do you hope we will have achieved?
I want us to end hunger, and I want us to make sure that everybody in this country has access to good, healthy, nutritional food. I want us to connect the dots. That's why this conference is so important. The way our system of government is set up, sometimes it's hard to solve big problems because we're all so siloed. I mean, Congress, if you want to talk about SNAP, you go to the Agriculture Committee. You want to talk about school meals, it's the Education and Labor Committee. You want to talk about food as medicine, it's the Energy and Commerce Committee or the Ways and Means Committee. But the bottom line is we all need to be in a room together. And we all need to put something on the table. And it's not just government. And it's not just Congress. I mean, it's not just the federal government. It's the state and local governments. It is the nonprofit world. It is the faith-based community. It is the business community, the private sector as well. Look, I chair the Rules Committee, and the Rules Committee is the most powerful committee that nobody knows anything about. Yeah. But here's the important thing to know. We don't really have any jurisdictional constraints. So I've spent 2 years traveling the country all over the place looking at successful models in communities that are working, either to promote nutrition, hospitals that are models for the rest of the country, or anti-hunger initiatives. And look, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. The wheels have been invented. We need to uplift best practices. And this is a conference where we can bring everybody together, and when we leave here, we all put something on the table. And the final thing I'm going to say is that we need to leave here not by saying, well, this was a good conference. We need to leave here with an assignment for tomorrow and for next week and the week after. This is an opportunity. This is an opportunity. We can't blow it, right? The conference in 1969 did incredible things. WIC came out of that conference. The food stamp program came out of that conference. Labeling came out of that conference. We want this conference to be every bit as transformational and historic. And so I am energized. I know you are as well. I'm so grateful to Ambassador Rice and to the White House. But this is our moment. We all have to step up. We all have to do our part. Thank you.
Amen. Amen.
Well, all right, everybody. Please join me in thanking Senators Booker and Braun, Chairman McGovern, and the late Jackie Walorski for her extraordinary leadership to make this possible. We would not be here without them, and our assignment is clear. We're going to get stuff done. Amen. We're going to carry this on. We're going to end hunger in this country. We're going to reduce diet-related diseases. So let's get to work. Thank you all.